Welcome to This Week in Local, a Localogy podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Localogy analysts Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Local. I'm Charles Laughlin, your co-host, along with Mike Boland, your other co-host. Mike, how are you today?
Hey, Charlie, doing well.
Great, great. So, Mike, tell us something you're working on.
Sure. So we are now looking at the sort of re-emergence of Amazon One. And I'll explain what that is. So, sort of backing up Amazon in its many sort of conquests of going after, large adjacent verticals and industries as it tries to grow, healthcare, One Medical. One of the things that predates that it's been sort of teasing for a while is what we call retail as a service. That's sort of our term. And really what it means is similar to what Amazon did with AWS, where it had this sort of thing that it incubated internally, and then it spun it out as a platform. And if you think about it, Amazon's very good at logistics and, just sort of streamlining technology. So it realized it had the competency, and this might be one of its next big vertical conquests, retail, right? And just arming retailers with tools to just sort of streamline things that, admittedly have just been around for forever and not really innovated, like the whole sort of checkout aisle, format. So anyway, that's behind its Just Walk Out technology, which it sort of incubated in its own Amazon Go stores. And there are cameras on the ceiling. It uses computer vision to just let you sort of wander throughout the store, put things in your cart. There's sensors, and then you just walk out as advertised. So it eliminates that bottleneck of the checkout aisle, meant for just better yield optimization for retailers. That's one example under this retail as a service umbrella. And I just mention all that as background for this Amazon One thing I'm talking about now, which is another sort of part of under that umbrella. Now, unlike the cameras on the ceilings, Just Walk Out, what this thing is it's a palm scanner. And there are several ways that retailers can use this thing. They have tested it out in the grocery context at Whole Foods, because of course they own Whole Foods, good sort of testing ground, where you walk in the store and you put your palm down on the thing. It does a sort of a biometric scan and you identify yourself with the palm. If you're doing it for the first time, it requires a quick sort of setup process, but then from that point forward, it recognizes you, ties it to your desired payment method or your Amazon account. And then you do things like wander through the store and you can just walk out. Others have put it actually at the cash register or at the checkout aisle as a sort of, middle ground between this newfangled thing and something that people are used to. It wants to build on the familiar. You're still going through a checkout aisle. They want to sort of ease people into it as opposed to this like weird palm scanning things when you open it. So I guess my point is there are several ways that it started to use that, different verticals for which it is applicable. As I mentioned, they've tested it in grocery. They've also tested it in something which is, you would imagine, quite logical, which is event ticketing. So at a concert venue or sporting arena, the ability to essentially get your admittance instead of the paper ticket, palm scan. Again, all the theme is Amazon sort of digitally streamlining all of these old processes. So that's the background. So we've been watching this for a while, and we actually haven't heard a peep out of Amazon's sort of retail as a service efforts, and particularly this palm scanning thing for a while. And it just sort of reemerged last week with an integration at Panera Bread. And this is one that's interesting because if you think about streamlining or hastening a checkout process or authentication or payment, all the things this thing can do, it makes sense for something labeled as quick serve restaurants. I'm not sure if Panera is in that umbrella. I think it is. It's not fast food, but it's a quick serve restaurant, and aligned with that, you want to just do things that are fast. So anyway, you walk into a Panera near the sort of place where you order. They have someone taking your order. They have a cash register. There is the palm scanner. It's sitting there. If you decide to use it, it will identify you, and then do other things beyond let you to pay. These are the sort of perks and the carrots it's dangling for you to start to use this, which is It ties it to your Panera loyalty account. Once you scan your palm, it'll say, it signals the sort of store associate there to say, "Oh, hello, Mr. Laughlin. Welcome back. Would you like to order your, chili bread bowl again or whatever you ordered last time?" So it's sort of like, making you feel like a VIP. So that's what it's going for here. As for if it will gain traction, like anything else where you're trading personal data for some convenience or something, it's going to be a trade-off. And right now I look at this, and even someone who is very tech forward and savvy, like, us analysts, I'm still a little bit skeptical, because when you're talking about anything biometric, especially in this age of heightened privacy awareness, I think it's going to take a lot to get people to do this. And feel safe doing it, get your palm scanned to identify yourself. Apparently it's all encrypted in the cloud and all that, and they're doing all the right privacy things, but still, will people use it? And again, it's a trade-off, and it's a question of if the value exchange is great enough. And again, it's a fast transaction, so that's one thing they're offering, quickness. Two, those sort of perks, the VIP perks, tying it to your loyalty account. I'm not sure if that's enough to do it, but we're gonna have to watch and see what happens there. And my theory, just like Amazon did with Go stores, is that Amazon Go had no interest in running convenience stores. It was really a test bed to work out the kinks and the logistical excellence of this thing. And I think that's what they're doing here. They're making the move into this vertical, quick service restaurants, to really see if there's a there, and if they want to roll it out more broadly. What is the take-up rate? What do they have to offer to get people to do it? So I think this is an experiment, but we'll see if that's what they're in it for, one, and two, if people are actually going to be using this thing. And if so, could roll out more broadly within this vertical. I also think they're going to continue to test verticals. Again, they've done grocery, they've done clothing stores. I didn't mention that. They've done event ticketing, which is, I think, the most logical of all of these activations, and now quick service restaurants. So going to be something we continue watching and picking apart. So that's what we see there.
So, Mike, I have a couple of thoughts here. I mean, I was always fascinated by the just walk out. That always, I think part of that was there was a TV commercial. I don't remember if Amazon had anything to do with it, where this guy, and I think it was an actor who was unimportant, who was in Band of Brothers. So it was a face that was familiar to me. And the actor just had a long trench coat on, and he was like, the acting was as if he was shoplifting, right? And he was just shoving,
making it look like
making it look nefarious. And then he just kind of smirked at the clerk on his way out and just left, And that was sort of a commercial for Just Walk Out. I don't remember if it was an Amazon ad or if some other tech company was playing around with something similar. I forget if it was IBM or Amazon. I don't know. Doesn't matter. But that planted a seed in my brain. And then later, probably a few years later, we started writing about the Amazon Just Walk Out technology. And I was like, that's so awesome. I mean, at some point we can all just act like we're shoplifting and then leave. And
wear trench coats.
Cool. It's cool as long as we did the setup ahead of time, but it didn't. Why did that not take off? Was it just too many logistical things, or is it getting more to what you were just talking about, which is the barriers to adoption among consumers?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. And first of all, I think I remember that commercial or one like it where they a checkout clerk sort of chased after the person, and you're thinking as the viewer,
that may have happened in the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, and then you're thinking, oh man, they got caught. But the store associate catches up with the person and says, "Sir,
they gave him the receipt. Gives him the receipt.
You dropped this.
Okay.
Or you forgot your receipt."
Like that. It was something like that.
So,
that was the same ad.
Yeah. So why hasn't it taken off? I think that, I don't know. This is something I like to call the curse of new technologies. We've talked about this in a few other contexts, such as like Google's visual search and 3D navigation. It's sort of its level of disruption is its own worst enemy. It's too much of a departure from the things we're comfortable doing. And whenever you talk about payments, I've always said this since the early 2010s, when payments were just like they're gonna be the next best thing. And I said, well, slow down a bit. people are not going to change the way that they pay for things, which is like a very security driven type of thing. You gotta offer something a lot better than like tapping your phone on a terminal as opposed to what you did before, which is swipe a credit card. It's not big enough of an advantage to get someone to change a deep rooted habit. So I think the way we shop, the way we pay for things are such deep rooted habits. So there has to be a value exchange that is great enough. Now, with the just up walk out thing, I think the bigger value proposition is to the retailer. As I said, it's yield optimization. It's getting more people in and out of the door, and just expediting all of the sort of sales of those goods. And they love it. Now, what is the value exchange and value proposition for the actual shopper? I guess it's, it is a pain point. I guess it's a pretty big pain point to have to wait in line, and just walking out is, I'm actually surprised that value proposition wasn't enough to do it. But I think also when we look at this, and our whole question is based on this premise that it didn't take off. And I don't know if that's necessarily true. It didn't take off only because it just hasn't been rolled out.
I haven't seen it in use, and I go to the grocery store.
Yeah, but it hasn't been rolled out that widely. So there's a few quick history. So Amazon did their Go stores, right? And they actually unwound a bunch of them recently, not because they weren't successful, because it was done with the experiment.
Right.
They did that. They had a partnership with like a Hudson News type of, airport convenience place. And they figured this is a great place to test it because people don't mess around when you're in an airport.
You want a fast experience because you got a plane to catch.
You want a fast experience, and they know that like any security risks while they're testing this out, like people actually shoplifting, people aren't going to like risk, TSA, getting thrown in TSA jail.
You don't want to get arrested at the airport. No,
a Diet Coke from Hudson News. Right? So, anyway, then it rolled it out there as like a test bed, and then it did a few other small partnerships in the retail sort of vertical, clothing and other things, and then it didn't really go anywhere. So I think they're still refining it, or maybe they determined, hey, this just, it's just not moving the needle. It creates too much confusion. All the retail streamlining we were trying to gain, we're not getting it because we're spending more time trying to educate. I mean, this is a big education play. I mean, that's a huge thing.
I think it's that.
Yeah.
Because my take on this, and I could be completely wrong. I think the point of where it breaks down is this setup, having to set something up in advance so that you can go and just put your palm down. Or I don't mind putting my palm down on a scanner.
It's the first time.
It's at home, however the hell I have to, or having to go into a store to get a picture of my palm or whatever the onboarding process is.
You do it in the store.
Fine. That's a friction point. That's
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me, that's the friction point. You can have my palm scan. I don't care.
Yeah.
But taking the time to set it up, that is, for me, that's the problem. For other people, it might be the biometric privacy concerns. Everyone's freaked out about something else than I am typically, but I think there's several things that stand in the way of consumers, adopting these things. And I think it's just, it's time, it's hassle. It's change. Change is a big barrier too, but I think it's time and hassle. And you said something interesting a moment ago about payments, how there has to be a improvement in the experience in order for there to be a change. I think in my mind, one of the biggest improvements in experience is the difference between giving the waiter at a restaurant, giving the waiter your credit card, having them disappear with it, which still happens, versus giving it to them and then they swipe it at the table side and the transaction takes place in front of your very eyes. That is a much better experience, in my opinion. I'll give you another one. Okay, go ahead.
There's, I think the most successful application of mobile payments and that significant enough value change is what Uber has done. The fact that when the trip is done, you're not dealing with some like greasy credit card machine that half the time they claim is broken because they don't want to pay the interchange fees, and then you're dealing with cash and do the math.
Or the guy wants cash, he doesn't want to do the credit card.
And then you're on a work trip and you forget to get the receipt. Uber digitized all of that. You walk away, you got the whole receipts right within the app. You got a little account management dashboard. And it's mostly just the sort of walk away factor.
Well, I think Uber has perfected that model. Like maybe a simpler transaction because it's a single transaction, one ride, versus scanning 40 items at a grocery store.
Yep. Yep.
That said, but they have created that experience expectation, I think, that sooner or later is going to be commonplace. For some reason, the reason I ask about it with Amazon is because I want that experience, but I haven't seen it, in anything but in an Uber ride,
Yeah.
as a consumer. And I just wonder why. Is it just too hard to scale? Are people just not into it? Or, who is putting thumbs down on this, And I think
Yeah.
it's several points, I think, there.
You're right. It should be bigger than it is
Yeah.
theoretically. It sort of checks all the boxes, but you bring up a good point. It's not, and why? So I think we're going to keep looking out for those reasons. I think it's all the things we talked about. It's consumer education is required, and that sort of negated all of the streamlining that they hope to accomplish because they're having to stop and like help people set it up and all this other stuff. And then just the sort of consumer resistance.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, why don't we take a quick break and then we'll change subjects.
Hi everyone, it's Mike Boland, Senior Analyst at Localogy, here to tell you about L23. It's our annual flagship event, held this year in sunny San Diego, Coronado Bay to be exact, and it's all about charting the course of local commerce and tackling all of the factors and topics that continue to impact the business of local media, advertising, and commerce. So we've got a solid speaker lineup already, and we'd love to see you in Coronado Bay, April 17th through 19th, and you can find out more at localogy.com. Now back to our episode.
Okay, we're back. So, Mike, I wanted to just take a couple minutes to talk about something that I've alluded to on previous podcasts, I think, anyway, which is something I'm working on right now, which is the headline is the effect of how AI is changing online meetings, and more to the point, how our meeting experience is being changed. It's kind of boring cliche to say we're on online meetings all day long, all the time, even though it's generally true for most of us, at least for many of our days during much of the week. And there's a lot going on with changes with using AI, not only to change the meeting experience, but also the meeting outcome, how meetings are being used to generate accountability, follow-ups, all this stuff. And I've written a bit about this, about companies like Weight Room and Read AI. The Howard Lerman's Roam, I think, will be, big in this, as well. And Read, which their basic thing is, they're not the meeting platform itself. They're a basically sort of an app that you use in conjunction with an online meeting platform like Zoom. To extract more value from the meeting using AI to sort of measure, enthusiasm levels during the course of the meeting, to extract takeaways, etc. Basically, so that you can apply AI to make the meeting more efficient and to produce better outcomes from the meeting. And they've just come out with something that's kind of funny, kind of cool. It may ultimately be kind of interesting, which is this notion of turning an hour-long meeting or half-hour long. We always joke around about the 30-minute default meeting time, which is kind of a true thing, that every meeting's 30 minutes, even if it doesn't need to be. And taking that 30-minute meeting, 60-minute meeting, however long the meeting is, and extracting a 2-minute highlight reel movie, basically, from your boring online meeting. And David Shim's quote, who is the founder of Read AI, his quote in their announcement is, what's more, what could be more boring than a 60-minute meeting, and I'm not sure I could argue with him. Watching the movie of a 60-minute meeting, I think is what he said. And he's right. So extract it down to a 2-minute meeting. And the purpose of that is, if somebody said, how was the meeting? You just send them that 2-minute highlight reel, which I think they use signals like, people leaning in, raising their voices, signaling engagement and enthusiasm in some way. And the analogy he makes is movie studios using test audiences to develop the preview for the movie.
Trailer.
Like the trailer. What are the moments during that test audience where they're most engaged, where they're most enthusiastic, where they're having the biggest emotional response or whatever. And they use those moments to sort of create the source material for the trailer. Okay. And they're sort of using a similar logic, but they're using AI to extract those moments, AKA along the lines of the test audience, to develop that sort of meeting highlight reel. So you can watch that 2 minutes and you'll know what was discussed, what was decided upon, and what action items were sort of agreed to during the course of the meeting. So it's like reading a meeting summary, but instead you watch a 2-minute video. So this is the kind of thing that AI is doing to change how we not only experience meetings, but use them for business reasons, for business outcomes. And, so I think it's not unfair to say AI will change how we experience online meetings. It already is. And right now we've got a couple of big startups out there doing this. I think there'll be more. I think there'll be more done with it. But I think, how we experience meetings and also the accountability, to be quite honest, that comes from these meetings is going to change dramatically because of this. So that's what I'm working on now. It's kind of fun. I haven't actually watched one of these highlight reels. I'm not sure I want to any more than I want to. I want to watch them more than I want to watch the entire 60-minute meeting I wasn't in. But it's certainly it's not a bad way to if somebody asks you the question, what happened in that meeting? You just say, watch this.
Yeah.
And that's it. So anyway.
So well, first of all, if they can get the sort of that iconic voiceover they use in like dramatic trailers.
I always wanted that job, I didn't quite have the voice for it, but I always wanted
in
that
a
job.
world.
Yeah, in a world.
In conference room B.
Yes.
So anyway, I think a few
from accounting. So.
Yeah, a few things here is this could be a sort of like a trailer, like a movie trailer. It helps you decide if you want to watch the movie. So I think it would be cool if they had the full meeting available.
Oh yeah,
and
it always is.
Here's the 2 minute. Now decide if you want to, you're hooked in, you want to listen to the whole thing, or if this is missable. And I think that if they've chosen 2 minutes, perhaps that's the sweet spot. They may determine after a while that maybe 3 minutes is more substantive. They might have a 30-second option.
I'm not sure. I didn't,
Yeah, so I think they'll probably test that to get the right timeline, so it conveys some meaning, and again, like through all the signals you mentioned to get the good parts. But I think in combination with the full meeting recording, I think that could be powerful. You probably won't be able to get all the nuance from the small clip, but it'll tell you or indicate if it's something that you need to dig deeper on, or maybe it's not. Okay, that was a great meeting I missed. I can tell from the trailer. I got to go listen to the same thing. But maybe it's okay. Now I need to call Bob, and because he said something that was in that preview that I want to dig deeper on.
I think that's the idea. Is that instead of watching the 60-minute, which no one's going to do. Let's face it, no one is going to do that. Instead of theoretically watching the 60-minute meeting to decide whether I need to call Bob and say, where's that thing that you said you were going to do in the meeting? That commitment is probably going to be part of that highlight reel,
Yep.
So I think that's the idea, is like you get to the wheat, not the chaff, through this 2-minute highlight. Yeah. Whereas there's 58 minutes of, this assumes there's always 58 minutes of chaff and 2 minutes of wheat in every meeting, which is probably not too far off.
Well, I tell you what, we should eat our own dog food here. Maybe on the next episode, we'll use this, and we will release the full, podcast episode and the 2-minute version. See what people think.
Yeah, I'm worried that the 2-minute highlight reel is going to be way more interesting and entertaining.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, so that's what I'm working on, and there's a lot of other things going on, but that was the latest, flashiest iteration of this movement to use AI to sort of make online meeting. Howard Lerman's kind of building this Rome platform, which is, it's not being sold necessarily as an AI thing, but it's it's a place where basically it's driving to a world where meetings are very short and very intentional.
Yeah.
Maybe, and I think one of the other things kind of running through this thread of, we want to turn the 30-minute meeting into a series of 3-minute meetings or whatever it is. It's not so much that you have fewer meetings. You might actually have more meetings, but they're shorter and more intentional and more focused. And
it's let form follow function. Right now, it's a situation where it's form over function, because the form being, hey, this has got to fit into a 30-minute container, where the function may be 5 minutes, it may be 45 minutes, but the point is, it's like you got to squeeze it.
There's no expectation
standard
of time.
Container.
There's no expectation that it's going to take 30 seconds is completely cool for a meeting in this new environment, this new idea. And whereas now you do a 30-minute meeting, I do think there's an unexpected or an unspoken expectation that we fill the 30 minutes or something close to it.
Yeah.
And I think there's this movement to sort of just kill that whole notion.
Well, the other thing is, it's not like, okay, we talked about what we needed to talk about and it's only 23 minutes, so we're going to kill 7 minutes. I think it's more of a deeper, it's more of a deeper psychological effect where you have 30. So you sort of just like meander through the conversation. If you have 5 minutes, you're going to be a lot more targeted. And
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not like we haven't been on things scheduled for 30 or 45 minutes and end them considerably early. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But you do kind of get the feeling that no one states it out loud, like you said, that there is this filling the air kind of a thing. And I think it's not just AI, just this whole new notion of thinking differently about online meetings. AI is a big part of it. It's not the only part of it. Is about sort of getting rid of that sort of baked in inefficiency that no one expressly states, but it's just there, and so we'll see if it's a cultural change, and can a few startups really affect a cultural change around online meetings. We're going to find out, I think, over the next little bit, so we'll see. Okay, Mike, I guess that's probably as good a time as any to end this episode of This Week in Local. You want to read us out?
Sure. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been This Week in Local. This episode was brought to you by L23, Localogy's flagship event, taking place this year in San Diego. I should say taking place next week in San Diego. We're already a week away. It's the 17th through the 19th, and you can find out more at localogy.com. Stay tuned every week for more episodes of This Week in Local. You can find the show on all major podcast networks. Please subscribe, like, and comment. So I'm Mike Boland with Charles Laughlin. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Localogy's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.